Halifax.
Well, hello and welcome to the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We made it to the end of the week, did we not? And another bright sunny day here in Nova Scotia. It was frosty this morning. It felt like I needed a jackhammer to get the frost off the windshield. Did you just end up like me and giving up and just hitting it with the washer fluid? I don't like to do that because, well, washer fluid is it's expensive, relatively, and it leaks all over the driveway, and there's issues with that. But it was one of those. I don't know if it's just this time of the year that my scraper, for whatever reason, doesn't like to work on the windshield. So I ended up just giving it up and hitting it with the washer fluid this morning. Sunny today. The winds, though, will pick up tonight, according to Allister Aalders, who will join us later in the show today for in the noon hour, part of the open hour today, to give us the latest in the forecast. And why are we doing the open hour in the noon hour today, you're asking? Well, that's because we have a special guest coming in at 11 o'clock today. We'll spend an entire hour with Premier Houston, who will be here to answer questions and take some calls. It'll be a busy day, and I caution you that the lines, when we have this segment, and I think this is probably, the fourth or fifth time the Premier's done this, tends to be busy. So I ask your patience. I urge you to call in early, and I'll ask you to keep the preambles to your questions as short as possible. I'd like to get the questions in. I will also urge the Premier to keep his answers as short as possible so we can get to as many calls as we can. That's going to happen after 11 o'clock today. We will open the telephone lines up at the 11 o'clock hour, and I am looking forward to it. Tonight, the Halifax Mooseheads continue their Quebec road swing. They're in Baie-Comeau, coming off that win in Quebec City on Wednesday night. Now, don't forget, Quebec games are at 8 o'clock starts. And you can catch all the action live right here on 95.7 News Radio. Gareth will have the call as we watch the Moose gain some momentum, maybe, as they do this long road trip. The long road trip, of course, is because the Scotiabank Centre is now, or will soon be, I would assume it already is, been turned into a curling rink. Because the Olympic curling trials are at Scotiabank Centre. That starts tomorrow night. Canada's best will be throwing stones in downtown Halifax with a pretty significant prize on the other side of it. We will decide who will represent Canada on both men's and women's Olympic curling. That's those games, of course, in Italy this year. And the field, I don't think, just looking at the names that are associated with it, I don't think that field can get much stronger. This is probably going to be the most competitive curling event you're going to see this year, outside of the Olympics maybe. But I think from top to bottom on both sides of both the men's and women's draws, I think that the talent that's in that field is probably going to be better than the talent that we see at the Olympics. And I know some of you are going to say, well, there's the Swedish team and there's the Swiss, and I understand that. But top to bottom, from the number one team to the last team in the draw, this field doesn't get any better. So you are going to see some fantastic curling for the next week at Scotiabank Centre. Of course, lots of storylines outside of the Olympics that are attached to this event. Brad Gushue, who is in the men's draw, rose to fame 20 years ago when we did this very same event here, winning it and then going on, of course, to win Olympic gold with his squad. He's back, and it's his farewell tour. I won't say swan song because if he wins, he's obviously going to go to the Olympics. But this is Brad's last go-around. Brad has announced earlier it was either this year or late last year that he is going to step back from competitive curling after representing Canada a couple of times at the Olympics. And, of course, that run of Brier wins was outstanding for Mr. Gushue. And I know he's a crowd favorite here. Brad's a crowd favorite just about everywhere in Canada. He's just that kind of person. I've met Brad a couple of times. He's just the nicest person to interview and have a conversation with, and truly respects the game. So we'll be watching Mr. Gushue at the event. And of course, on the women's side, hometown favorite. Can we say that? We had an interview, of course, earlier this week with a member of Team Black who are representing the Halifax Curling Club at the Olympic trials this week. And we will wish Christina and Jill and Jen and Carly and Marley and Coach Stewart the very best. And, we're pulling for you. As I think Joe Brothers told us when we interviewed her early this week, they have an extra person on the ice as the hometown team. Lots of people that have traveled to Halifax for this event to watch it. And for those that are listening this morning, we say hello and enjoy Nova Scotia hospitality. I can tell you that the Patch is going to be a vibrant place over the length of this tournament. Looking forward to it. Some news this morning before we get into the show, and I know that we've had discussions about this in the past, and there have been a number of people that have been renting spaces over at Shuby in Dartmouth as the homelessness issue continues to be felt here in our part of the world. There was some concern that they were going to close the park this winter. That is not going to happen now. Released from the province this morning saying people renting RV spaces at Shuby Campground will be able to stay and access supports this winter with funding from the province. Barbara Adams, who's the Minister of Opportunities and Social Development, says that they are committed to offering more safe, supported options for people as the temperatures get colder. Allowing a winter stay at Shuby Park gives residents certainty, connection, and access to wraparound supports as we continue to focus on creating long-term sustainable housing options for Nova Scotians experiencing or at risk of homelessness. HRM will receive $160,000 to keep the 17 spaces open for rent and to support winter ops for 25-26. Municipal outreach teams will address any site-related concerns, ensure guests have adequate food, and provide navigation support for healthcare or social services. They will also work with people staying in the campground to find long-term housing solutions, offering referrals to long-term supportive housing and supporting applications for the provincial rent supplement program. The release goes on to say essential services like drinking water and snow clearing and wastewater services and garbage collection will continue to be provided. HRM now says it's working with 8 people who have already moved into the campground. Each site costs $250 a month, and that includes electricity. HRM Mayor Andy Fillmore says, and I quote, "We're finding compassionate solutions that provide safe, dignified alternatives for those in vulnerable situations. Indoor spaces are a better option than sleeping rough, especially as winter approaches." So that just came in just a few moments ago, and I know that some were asking that question earlier this week. Just, again, a brief notice about a bit of a change to the show today. We normally do the open hour, the Friday Free-for-All, at 11 o'clock. That is moving to noon today so that we can make way for Premier Houston to join us, who was in Boston yesterday, racking up the frequent flyer miles. And will join us for an hour, and we'll be answering some questions and taking some calls, and I hope that you can participate and get those calls in early, folks. It's going to get busy. And then to facilitate that, we will move the open hour, the Friday Free-for-All, to the noon hour today, with a bit of a caveat. We are going to bring Allister Aalders in, our weather specialist, for part of that to give us an update on what's going on with the weather and get you set up for your weekend. So a busy Friday here, thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, who works her magic each and every day here on the program and gets those interviews for us and sets all of this stuff up. And without her, this show would be a mess. Let me tell you, it would be an absolute mess. And I am appreciative of all the work that she does. We're getting ready to take our first break here on the Friday edition. And when we return, I don't think this is much of a surprise. I saw a piece on, I think it was the CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo a couple of days ago. Do you remember Hal Smith? right? The participation guy. Well, participation is now sounding the alarm on costly stagnation in the new adult report card on physical activity. We apparently are becoming less active, more couch potato-ish, and our participation levels are showing that as a result. We're going to dig into this a little bit about what inactivity and what sitting on the couch and surfing your phone. Apparently, that's one of the reasons, is that we're busy scrolling and not walking. Although I see people walking and scrolling, which is dangerous. Anyway, we're going to dig into this a little bit on the show when we have a conversation with the Report Card Research Committee professor, School of Kinesiology over there at Acadia University, that being Jonathon Fowles, when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. It is the Fabulous Friday edition. I'm glad you're with us. Going to take a break. We're back in a couple minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. This is the Fabulous Friday edition. Glad you're able to spend some time with us today. I said this before the break, and I really not entirely surprised at the results of the 2025 report card on physical activity for adults from participation. The numbers, a bit staggering, though, revealing that only 46% of adults in Canada are meeting physical activity guidelines. Now, that number has been stagnant for years, and the findings underscore the urgent need for a whole society approach to get Canadians active and avoid deepening Canada's public health and economic crises. That from the release of this report card, and we're very pleased to welcome to the show to give us a little bit more context on the whole thing, a member of the Report Card Research Committee, also a professor at the School of Kinesiology at Acadia University. That's Jonathon Fowles. Jonathon, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I am well. Did you get some physical activity this morning?
I actually did. I did a little bit of my stretching and calisthenics in front of watching the sports news this morning.
I just have to watch the sports news. It gets my heart rate going most days, particularly when the Leafs show up on there. But that's a whole different subject.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
This, I mentioned a couple of times this morning, Jonathon, that this number of people who are inactive really, to me, at least to me, didn't come as much of a surprise. And if you go back and you look at report cards over the last few years, this number really has kind of staying in the same spot, right?
Yeah, for the most part. Actually, in Nova Scotia, when I was on the 2021 review committee and I was looking at the data before that, they used to do some regional analysis. And actually, Nova Scotia was one of the few provinces where physical activity levels were starting to trend upward prior to the pandemic. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have regional data right now in this current report card, but I think the current stats reflect that there's continuing pressures on our availability of time and attention to be physically active, and many people face challenges in rural communities, access to transportation and walkable neighborhoods and those kinds of things, and of course technology and all the other pressures. But I think Nova Scotia is actually doing a pretty good job in trying to address this by with active transportation strategies and supporting physical activity in communities.
Jonathon, I hear a lot from people who say that life is busy, and
Yes.
and I'm dealing with my job, with my kids, with the in-laws, all of the things, all the pressures that people deal with daily, and there's just not a lot of time for physical activity.
Yeah, that is the common barrier that people identify. However, I think it's important for people to understand why, because importance can sometimes create time. When people value something, they create time for it. And I think, the data is now overwhelming with the benefits that physical activity can have, not only on your personal health, but on societal health, in the sense that it's a huge economic cost due to the healthcare costs. So physical inactivity-related disease costs our healthcare system billions and billions of dollars a year, more than $4 billion in avoidable healthcare spending. And that if we as a country improve our physical activity levels by even 15%, we would save, more than $1 billion a year. And so one of the things that we can do is also understand that any minute counts, that it doesn't have to be allocating an hour to go to the gym or anything like that. We've now recognized that a minute at a time benefits your health, and that even for people who don't exercise, doing more than 3 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous physical activity actually significantly improves your health, improves your mental health, improves your metabolic health, and reduces your risks of many chronic diseases.
Do we run into problems when we start talking about physical activity, Jonathon? And we hear that, well, you got to get your 10,000 steps or your 7,500 steps in a day, and
right.
you got to do all this stuff. And when people try to do that and are unsuccessful and lose interest very, very quickly when these large goals become unattainable.
Yeah, and I think that was probably the errors of physical activity guidelines in the past, where we did set these huge goals. And one of the things that we have learned from the evidence over time is that any minute is a good minute of physical activity, and more is better. So although only 32% of Canadian adults are meeting, the recommended step guideline of, it's now 7,500 steps a day is where there's significant health benefits. But what we also find is that for people that are even right now only getting, say, 2,000 steps a day or 3,000 steps a day, if you increase it by 1,000 steps a day, you get a 15% improvement in your health. So it doesn't matter where you start. The goal is just to do a little bit more than what you're doing now. And so that 15% increase can start at 1,000 steps a day and go up to a little bit more than that. It can start at 4,000. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. So it is like, from a monitoring standpoint, we do have these cut points, like 150 minutes per week or 7,500 steps a day, that allows us to gauge how we're doing. But anybody can begin where they're at and improve. And so if you're, watching SportsCenter in the morning and you can get 3 minutes of some calisthenics or standing or walking around, and then that's better than where you were before.
What does it have to be, Jonathon? We hear this vigorous walk, and we hear those kind of things. Is just going out for just a regular paced walk around the block? Is that enough to be beneficial?
It actually is, and we also learn that replacing light physical activities from sedentary. We do know that sedentary behavior has increased health costs. So anything we can do to take time out of sedentary behavior and move it up to light to moderate. But in that moderate zone, the song "Staying Alive,"
right.
That's 100 steps per minute. That is what would be the minimum threshold to get into the moderate category, which most people can achieve if you just kind of walk at that pace. One of the things that I notice now is a lot of people walk with phones while they're texting and things, and that actually brings you down below that threshold to about 80 steps per minute. So
right.
Then people don't get above that moderate intensity. And that's where one thing we saw in this current report card is that percentage of people actually meeting the step guidelines has dropped out of pace with the moderate intensity. They used to be aligned at 49%, and now the step guideline, people meeting that one has dropped quite a bit. And I think part of that is due to distracted walking, to be honest.
And not to mention all the other ails with distracted walking into others and walking out into traffic and telephone poles and those kind of things, right?
Right. Yeah. So one thing that people could do is just maybe not text and walk and just put the phone away and enjoy your surroundings and get outside when you can.
It's funny you mentioned phone, Jonathon, and it's one of the things that grabbed my attention on the latest report card and the role that technology plays in us being sedentary. And people will come up to me here at the office and they'll tell me about the latest TikTok trend that's happening or reel or whatever they're called, and or the latest world crises on a news site that they have been reading about and are they're invested in, but not telling me about their latest walk around the block. How do we break that cycle? Do we just leave our phone at home, or how do we do that?
Well, I think we do have to recognize that the phones and all the things associated with them are incredibly enticing for us. Our brains were not meant to deal with the attractions that come through our phone, whether it's through news and TikTok and all these things. And that I think we do need to be conscious of that and to make a decision to put our phones away. It helps with our sleep. That's one of the other things is that we monitor is sleep guidelines. And although 70% of adults are reporting that they meet the recommended sleep duration, there's many people that are reporting disrupted sleep. And so, putting our phone away at times and limiting that can help us to be more physically active, get better sleep, and have less stationary time. That can improve our overall health. So again, it comes back to that value-based, choice about saying, I'm going to do this for my health, and we have to help each other out in that. And that's where, the challenge is that, one of the things that we saw in this one was that motivation for physical activity fell a bit. And I think that's partly due to those pressures that we feel about constantly being inundated with information and challenges. And there's more and more conveniences like, drive-throughs and various other things where we don't need to be physically active. So we do have to be aware of that. And that's part of the purpose of the report card, is to create awareness to the issues. But then it relies on people's personal choices, but also societal choices about making physical activity an easier option in the workplace, where you access healthcare, at school, and in your community, like having sidewalks and walkable neighborhoods and bike lanes and those kinds of things that you can maybe want to be more active, but unless you have those societal supports, then it makes it more difficult.
Jonathon, if we've convinced somebody today to become more active, what's the first step that you recommend to them?
The first step is just to take that first step, to be honest, and maybe encourage others to take that with you. One of the things is that sometimes we can feel like we're going it alone, but if you go for a walk outside with others, then it becomes an enjoyable activity. And if physical activity isn't fun, it won't be done. So that's the other thing, is to know that you're contributing not only to your health, but physical activity can also be a social thing. So just starting, and it doesn't matter, you don't have to set these big goals of 150 minutes or 7,500 steps a day. It might be just doing a little bit more, and you can act on that at any time. A minute a day or a minute every hour adds up to half the physical activity guidelines, or 2 minutes every half an hour to break up your day. It doesn't have to be this big goal. It can just be small steps towards moving more.
Jonathon, obviously lots of information out there. Participation website has got stuff on it. It's not hard to find the info you need to become more active.
Yeah. And the report card's there and has lots of great recommendations, not only personally, but for government, for healthcare, for various sectors to help support our whole society to be active.
Jonathon, appreciate your time today. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
That is
happy to talk.
That is Jonathon Fowles. He is a professor at the School of Kinesiology at Acadia University. Also sits on this report card research committee. The numbers, folks, are a little bit alarming. That less than half of us are being active, and it doesn't take a trained eye to see the results of that, and not to mention the impact that has on the healthcare system. I'm as guilty as the rest of us are. I'm not as active as I should be. I'm more active than most, but I do it in bursts. I'll spend a couple of hours on a weekend going out for a hike, but the rest of the week sitting here doing this show for 3 hours, and the preparation that begins with that and ends with that, and getting all the stuff lined up and working with Vanessa, I sit in a chair an awful lot, and it's something that my doctors identified. It's something that I've identified. but I don't want to sort of be holier than thou when I'm preaching at you to get out and be active. I should be doing the very same thing myself. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a break, and Blake is going to update us on what's going on the news. And on the other side of it, before our conversation with our friend from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data, Tim Powers, I'm going to go walk around the office. The first step is the one that matters, right? We're back in bits.
Axe.
Welcome back to the fabulous Friday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Lots happening federally this week. If you remember, this time 7 days ago, we were waiting for a vote on the budget, and the speculation was running wild that there may not be enough votes, and we might be going to a federal election and before Christmas, and so on and so forth. And once the vote happened, it passed, and lo and behold, the Carney government survived. And he jetted off to the United Arab Emirates and places in that region of the world to try and drum up some business. Time now for our weekly chat with our good friend from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data. That is Tim Powers. Tim, did you watch a game last night?
Which one? The
Bills game last night.
I saw the highlights of it this morning. Yeah, listen, NFL is fascinating right now with the Patriots, Dan, and the Steelers and others at the top. What is going on?
I had a conversation with the program director at our sister station, Jack 92.9, is Scotty Mars. And he is a large Patriots fan, has been for a very long time. And I said, Scotty, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the NFL season, when they kicked off on week 1, that 11 games in, that the Patriots would be at 9-2, and that the Broncos would be at 9-2, I would have called you a bold-faced liar.
Wild. Yeah, where are the Chiefs? And the Bills are trying to reassert themselves, although you should never rule out either of those teams. But the Jets, how are they doing?
Right.
Oh, yeah, and that guy, Aaron Rodgers seems to be doing better at Pittsburgh than he was at the Jets. Anyway, whoever, that Todd, Todd, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. We still love you.
Yeah, absolutely. We still do. Tim, lots going on. There's always lots going on in Ottawa this week. And, of course, the big piece was on Monday when we had the budget vote. Passed by, 2 votes, a couple of abstentions. Any surprises there for you?
Not really. I mean, that seemed to be the way it was shaping out heading into the weekend. And I mean, maybe one of the abstentions was a bit strange, Shannon Stubbs, but I think that's been well and clearly explained. She had underwent a medical procedure and was unable to vote. And not surprised Matt Genereux didn't vote. And then the NDP with 2 abstentions, that always seemed to be on the table. So it's through now, and we can stop saying, "Will there be a Christmas election?" Because there won't be. Well, unless Carney decides to call one himself, which I don't think he's going to do. So we're past that until the next time there's a confidence motion, Dan.
Matt Genereux didn't abstain from the budget vote, as I understand it. He's the Alberta MP who has said that he's going to retire. Is that a sign of things to come, that maybe he's not going to support or vote along with the party this time around, or am I just reading too much?
Well, there's a story. It's good you raised that. There's a story in the Toronto Star this morning about Genereux, and he doesn't say this, but according to a Conservative spokesperson, he's just not going to vote on issues of confidence as they go forward. The story also says that he called the Prime Minister and told him he was stepping away from politics, and so it adds more to the speculation as to what happened with Matt Genereux and why he moved away. So I would encourage people to have a look at that in the Toronto Star. It gives you some more insight. But I think, he won't be voting on much anymore. I don't know when he's officially going to step down. he had said the new year, but I'm sure the people of Edmonton that he represents would like an MP who is going to be there. So the sooner he does that, then the clock starts ticking for the Prime Minister to call a by-election.
Speaking of an MP who is going to be there, Chrystia Freeland got a new gig this week.
Yes, head of the Rhodes Trust. So you want a Rhodes Scholarship now? Call Chrystia Freeland. I mean, that's I believe she's a Rhodes Scholar herself.
She is.
Yeah, so pretty prestigious thing, and this on top of the work she's doing in the Ukraine. I think she's still going to do both. So yeah, she I don't think is officially resigned as an MP yet. So again, we're going to get to a place sometime in the new year when a few of these MPs who have announced their intention to go are actually gone, and we're going to have by-elections, and that will get into configuring what the Parliament looks like going forward. If they all stay the same, then we'll still have the same kind of minority size. So that's something I'm sure the Prime Minister is weighing when he's going to call these things or encourage these MPs to step down. Because you remember, there was a whole spate of stories, Dan, that Bill Blair, who was in cabinet, is going to step down and take an ambassador's role on. We had heard that was it Jonathon Wilkinson might also find himself in that role, BC MP. So they're all still in Parliament at the moment. So there's some strategy I'm sure the government is concocting around all of that and waiting to see, of course, what happens to Poilievre in January when his leadership review takes place.
I know you live in the world of data and polling, Tim. A poll from Angus Reid earlier this week on the leaders and their popularity, showing Carney at just about 52%, I think, and the number is not as flattering for Pierre Poilievre, who's seeing some, at least in this poll, some numbers that are the lowest when it comes to favorability that we've seen from him.
Yeah, and that's gotten a lot of attention, along with some of the Abacus stuff we put out a week ago. I think we discussed it, and in the Abacus stuff, it was 70-something% of conservatives like him, but there's a whole swath of others who don't, and that's his challenge right now, and that's his leadership challenge, and that's what he's focusing on, I'm told, and it's being reported by others as well too, that he wants to get some kind of clear mandate in January at the vote in Calgary, but a lot more conversation happening in the public realm anyway about whether he can actually win an election, particularly given he did so well last time and still finished second. So that is going to be more of a theme unless things start to change for him or the Liberals falter and somehow Mark Carney turns into Justin Trudeau in the eyes of the public and the disdain comes forward. That was a huge benefit for Pierre Poilievre last time. Right now, Carney is liked by the public. Carney's being given latitude by the public. You assume, as is often the case in politics, that will subside at some point, but not clear exactly when that will be.
Pierre Poilievre, in our part of the world earlier this week, Tim, he was in New Brunswick and was looking at some housing construction sites, and weighed in a little bit into some provincial politics there, urging the New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt to move forward and give up on a ban for fracking, and I think the word was get her done.
Yeah, that's a loaded one in New Brunswick. I mean, as it is in all of Atlantic Canada, fracking. I don't know if the science has changed on this, because that was also one of the big debates before, that we've got lots of natural gas, but what happens when we start fracking to get that natural gas? So, look, we're certainly seeing, at least at the federal level, a prime minister who's maybe going to do some historic deal with Alberta on a pipeline. Now, Justin Trudeau did buy a pipeline, just to be fair, but this would be a whole other thing, and it would change some existing law if this reporting is accurate. So maybe Poilievre feels he can push the envelope. Maybe Susan Holt is amenable, but I don't think it's Pierre Poilievre's words that are going to move Susan Holt to act.
Tell me a little bit about these secret negotiations that have been going on between Ottawa and Alberta on this pipeline. Is this legit, or is this trying to sort of gain favor with the Premier of Alberta at this point?
I feel like saying 6'7" here, Dan. Like I got 6'7" by my son this morning.
Oh no,
6'7", man. I don't know. Like 6'7". I all I know is what's been reported, and that is mostly by the Globe and by the CBC, that Michael Sabia, who's the top bureaucrat in the country, has been helping lead the negotiations that would see some sort of memorandum of understanding that would find a way for the federal government to agree to Alberta's desire to run a pipeline from Alberta to the northern coast of British Columbia, and this would somehow be in the national interest. Now, you've seen a little bit of pushback from David Eby, from different Indigenous leaders, from some Liberal MPs. One of the challenges to all of this, and Elizabeth May has spoken about it, we have a tanker ban, as you may remember, in northern British Columbia. There's legislation that puts that ban in place. The federal government brought in other legislation that allows for exemptions. What is being leaked is there'd be some modified exemptions that would allow for the LNG coming out of Alberta to be shipped. So some suggestion it was going to be announced last week, has not been. Don't know if it's a trial balloon. I think, Dan, it's all part of a bigger exercise that Carney's involved in, and you mentioned it in the news. He's in the Gulf states today. I think he's just trying to show the world that Canada is open for business, and within Canada that we're open for business, and he's prepared to try and hustle different things. His challenge will be, you can create lots of initiatives, but what can you close? And I think he, again, has latitude. Business communities liking what he's doing, it seems to be. So to certain liberals and certain conservatives, but he's going to be at a certain place asked, well, what have you closed, Prime Minister, in terms of deals?
Tim, as always, a pleasure. We'll talk to you next week, sir.
Okay, take care, buddy. Bye.
That is Tim Powers from Summa Strategies and Abacus Data, and joins us weekly here on the Todd Veinotte Show. When we come back, holiday shopping in full effect, and with that comes scams, and I'll tell you, they're getting better. A conversation with the head of security advisory at BMO. When we return, you're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We're back in minutes. Started your Christmas shopping yet? I have. I've started getting some of the online stuff done, and started getting some of the gifts shipped off to a family afar, I will say. Sometimes delivery is a bit of a challenge, but I try to get it done early so that I don't run into that crunch that many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a busy time of the year. Retailers look forward to it. I know, and perhaps most of you look forward to it. I always find it to be stressful, but that's just me. And many of you begin your shopping, particularly around Black Friday, which we know is next Friday. And that will be the kickoff in earnest, I would suggest, to the bulk of your Christmas shopping and so on and so forth. But with that, of course, comes the dark side of the holiday season, and that is the inevitable scams that work their way into our society, particularly at this time of the year. And I don't know if you've been watching your email box or watching some of the stuff that you get. Those scams are getting much better. It used to be pretty easy to pick it out and say, that's a scam. You can't even get you're not spelling everything right, or the logo's wrong, or those kind of things. And I'm sure it has something to do with the growth of AI and giving the perpetrators of these scams more tools to try and fool us. So we thought it appropriate to welcome our next guest into the program to give us a little bit of advice as we head into the busy time of the year when it comes to shopping, and that is the head of security advisory at BMO, and that's Larry Zelvin. Larry, how are you?
I'm well, Dan. How are you this morning?
I am well, sir. Appreciate you joining us. These scams are becoming harder to sort of ferret out because they're getting much more sophisticated.
They are, Dan. It's a couple of things, and you hit it right on the head. I mean, AI has been a game changer. Not only does it lower the bar just for people who want to commit fraud, so you don't have to be necessarily technical. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of thinking. The computer will generate not only a really good-looking phishing or email or text or phone, but it can also do it at a larger scale. So in other words, they can find ways to email, call, or text more people. And the convincing ability of it is just extraordinary. And again, because people are not actually building the content, the computers are using AI.
The Nigerian prince scam, right? That's the one that comes to mind and has been working itself around for many years now, and fairly easy to identify. At least that one is. But I mean, just perusing my email box over the last couple of weeks, some of the phishing emails that I have received are pretty. They almost look legit.
Yeah, Dan. I mean, it's next to impossible to like understand which is real and what's not. But I can offer you and your listeners a few clues.
Sure.
One of the things that I would suggest is if you get an offer, this can happen on a website as well, right? Or potentially on an application if you owe it. But if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Right. So as we go into Black Friday, people are looking for the best bargains and they see something is 20, 30 deep discounted. Right. They're like, oh, my gosh, I will go with that because look at the price differential. This is fantastic. Well, it may not be, folks. The second thing is this sense of urgency. Right. Hey, we've got a sale. It's only for about an hour. Well, that is a legitimate marketing scheme for some, but it's really been corrupted by fraudsters. So be careful of that immediacy. One other point, if I may, if you get to a site, or maybe two, if you get to a site and they insist that you use a debit card, they insist that you use, Interact, they insist you use cryptocurrency, anything that is instant payment, that should be an instant red flag, because if and when you find this is fraud and you go to your bank or other financial institution or your merchant and go, hey, I want my money back, that money's gone. So folks, try and use your credit cards as much as possible. And then the last thing I'll mention is, look, I'm not anti-TikTok or any other. That's everybody gets their own choice. But be careful of merchants that are using non-traditional means to sell you, because, and again, in many cases, those could be fraudsters. In some cases, it's just legitimate folks, mom and pops. But you have to have a higher level of vigilance because the security is not quite as good.
What do you recommend in those situations, Larry? I mean, we all, subscribe to social media of whatever sort it is, and we see legit companies that use the social media platforms to advertise, and some that are more nefarious. Should we look at it in social media, then go to a website, or what's the best way to protect ourselves in those situations?
Yeah, look, my first advice that I give to people when it comes to fraud, and also for cyber for that matter, is to slow down, right? Stop going so quickly. Think about what you're looking at. Think about what you're about to do. Let your intuition, your spidey sense, if you will, guide you to a degree. If you have any suspicions, well, now it is probably time to do some research, right? Take that website link or maybe an application, go online. Search as, hey, is this a legitimate site? In some cases, you can go to the Better Business Bureau. You can go to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. They'll offer some counseling. No, this is not a perfect science, but the good news is if others have complained, right, and you'll see it on Reddit just as an example, going, hey, this site is fraud, be careful. Well, my gosh, just by taking that 30 seconds or a couple of minutes, that can make the difference between you having a non-frustrating day or a highly frustrating day.
And the worst part is, for the most part, if you are a victim of this scam, recovering those funds is a difficult task, if it's even possible at all.
Well, it really does depend, right? Because you can call if you get the biggest thing is you need to know who to call, and you got to call them fast, right? So you can stop charges on your credit card. Hopefully, if you're using wires, and again, be very careful in that regard. But if you get to your financial institution quick and identify it as fraud, there is a higher probability of recovery. It's not always certain, but my gosh, a higher probability is better than no probability. And that's why I was encouraging people to avoid using those instant payment systems. But as soon as you think something's fraud, flag it, lock it down, because here's the thing, where we may have one erroneous charge or one erroneous withdrawal, that can quickly become 10, 15, 20 or more.
Valuable advice, Larry. Appreciate spending some time with us today.
My pleasure, Dan. Folks, have a wonderful holiday, but also be safe out there.
That is Larry Zelvin. He is the head of security advisory at BMO. It's really easy to fall into it. I know many people that have been victims of this. I know there's a lot of stuff that gets targeted at seniors, and that is certainly prevalent. But people that colleagues I've worked with that have been fallen victim of this, and it's very easy to happen. So the old adage likely stands true. And I know it's tough for mom and pops that are trying to use Black Friday and other parts of this holiday season to try and move some product and offering deep discounts, but you got to be so careful when you're dealing with stuff online, right? It can turn around and bite you pretty hard. We're going to take a break here on the program. On the other side of the news, a conversation with the Premier of Nova Scotia. Tim Houston will be in the studio. He's going to answer some questions. He's going to take some calls. And I am looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a couple of weeks now. And we're very happy that he's going to be able to spend some time with us. Tim Houston will be your guest when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders. We're back in minutes.
Facts.
Well, all right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Aalders, and our next guest sitting across from me here in the studio is dressed all in blue today. I can't figure out why, if that was just by mistake, and I happen to be wearing a blue shirt today too. So we maybe got the same memo. Did we, Premier Houston?
Well, you always look good in blue, so why not?
Ooh, careful. Careful now. Anyway, that voice you have become accustomed to hearing on the station, and we're very, very happy that he's able to spend another hour with us as we get towards the end of 2025, and that, of course, is the Premier of Nova Scotia, and that is Tim Houston. So, Premier, do I call you Premier? Do I call your Energy Minister? What's the way I refer to you now as?
Well, listen, I'm happy to be here for sure. So I'm probably going to get called quite a few things over the next hour, but it's fun. I love doing this because you're hearing from real people, real issues. You're really getting a pulse for what's on the minds of people. So I appreciate that you do this. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to the next hour.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's lay the ground rules right away quick. The lines are busy. They're already busy. Please, some patience if you're trying to get on. It's going to be a busy hour. I will ask you as a caller to keep the preambles to your questions as short as you possibly can. I know there's context to things, but we like to get those questions asked and answered, and then try to get to as many people as we can because I don't want to disappoint everybody. And Mr. Premier, as always, I will ask that, and again, I know there's context to your answers, but to try and keep your answers as short as possible so that we can facilitate as many people to get access to you as possible. I am the chair, so I get to do the couple of questions off the top. Yesterday, we heard an announcement that the elimination of those trade barriers across the country. How does that, or how will that impact the listener that's in their car right now listening to us this morning? Are they going to see a reduction in costs of goods because of this?
They can. They might. It's the barriers, and the barriers run the whole gamut, like from just completely ridiculous stuff to less ridiculous but still ridiculous. But at the end of the day, what's been happening, and we've been working on the removal of the barriers for a while, and a lot of that started with a push from Nova Scotia. But when you think about, we're 1 million people in a country that's much, much bigger. So that's all opportunity. It's all opportunity to get our products and services in many cases to other regions without a big hassle. So it's opportunity for business. That opportunity for business means opportunity for better wages, more employment. It's good for everyone, and it's one country. So we should act like that. So it just on a common sense level makes sense. But the economists would say that this could increase the GDP of Canada by 7%, and I don't know, but it is a good thing. That's for sure.
Why no food and why alcohol excluded from this announcement yesterday?
I think those are still some sensitivities. Obviously, Nova Scotia, we're good. We've done all that. We've removed all that stuff. We're wide open on that stuff. The food, there's some concerns in some areas on food safety. Some people would say, well, maybe the restrictions at the butcher shop in some province, well, they're not as tight as restrictions in ours. I personally think that's nonsense. There's no province or territory in this country that is going to stand by while somebody feeds knowingly unsafe food to one of their citizens. Not going to happen. I think it's nonsense, but we're moving in the right direction. In Nova Scotia, we've taken all that. We're moved on all that stuff. But others are making progress, and that's a good thing.
Any concern at all that that when we open up these trade barriers, that industries in Nova Scotia will see product from away coming in cheaper and hit their bottom line?
It's competition. It's a tough world. It's a competitive world. There's always the risk, but I believe in our products. I believe in our people. We can compete, and we should not be afraid to compete. Business is about competition. So I think it's. I just go back to it's one country. It's one country.
One more set of questions before we get to the phone lines. I know many of you have been on hold for a bit, and this is going to move us into East Uniacke. Premier, your government approved an expansion of a quarry in East Uniacke. It was 4 hectares. Expansion was increased to 40. Residents have sent me documents and pictures and other things from this site, and they're alleging that the company there is illegally dumping construction waste and has filled in wetlands that they weren't supposed to fill in. They're concerned that a company that has been doing this was rewarded with an expansion. Your thoughts on that quarry?
Yeah, so good people live in that community. I've been there. I've been on site. I've met with many of them. I've heard their concerns, and I've seen probably some of the same pictures that you have as well. But the science has been reviewed. We have inspectors. We've investigated every complaint, and we'll continue to as more come through. But we're always trying to find the balance, and we're building. We're trying to build, and when you're trying to build, you need quarry material, right? So there's a economic side of this, but we're not crazy people. We live here too. We care about the province. We care about the environment as well. So, but there's a process that goes through. Now, the approval has a number of conditions the company has to meet. I can't remember. I think it's 39 or something. It's a lot, including setting up a environmental community liaison. So there will be constant discussion. And I would just say that if people have concerns, they should raise them, and we'll investigate them. But the decision was made by the department and but through the science that this was should be approved, and so it was.
Residents there are asking for a town hall premier and say they've been flatly turned down for a public session on that, and are asking for the Department of the Environment to conduct some soil testing. Can you commit to that today, or can you at least bring those forward to the Environment Minister? Yeah, sure.
I mean, there's lots of town hall, lots of mechanisms for discussion, and as I say, even one of the conditions of this would be that there would be a community dialogue back and forth, right? So that is something that happens. It's always it's sometimes never enough. Right. and sometimes, and I don't want to say that's the case in this situation, right? But in my life, in politics, certainly some people say, well, he won't answer the question. Well, no, I answer the question, but you just don't like the answer, right? But we always listen. If there's concerns, raise them up for sure. We'll investigate them. And I'm not an environmental inspector. I did play one on a TV show one time, but I'm really not an environmental inspector. But we have them, and they're good people, and they care, and they do their job, and they take it seriously, and they'll continue to do that.
Concerns that quarry is pretty close. I think it's 250 meters from the headwaters of the Sackville River, which you no doubt know is one of the last rivers in mainland Nova Scotia that gets an Atlantic salmon run. So not only is this an East Uniacke issue, this could go all the way into Bedford, right?
Yeah, again, I would just say that the science, those are all factors. The Department of the Environment looks at all those things, and we care about those things. But, we rely on the science and the investigation.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I like having the Premier in here because I get to not do a lot of work. It's time to go to the phones and listen to and get some feedback from Nova Scotians. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. And I will ask you all just to keep your questions as short as you possibly can so we can get to as many people as possible during this hour. We begin with David. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, Dan, and hi, Mr. Premier. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm wondering, in your role of Energy Minister, if you have an awareness of combined heat and power systems or district heating. Just briefly, heat actually accounts for 60% of total societal energy use here in Nova Scotia and elsewhere. Electricity, in contrast, is only 20%. Transportation is only 20%, yet heat gets very little attention in sort of the discussions regarding environment and sustainability. So if you take a combined heat and power system versus a centralized electrical production facility like we have in Tufts Cove, combined heat and power is at least twice as efficient, which means it burns half the amount of fuel and produces half the amount of emissions. But if that change also includes a switch from a centralized coal-fired electrical power plant to a decentralized gas-fired combined heat and power plant, you're also producing about 50% emissions because of less carbon intensity. So you wind up with a total of 75% emissions reductions, basically using the same technology, the same fuels that we've always used, just doing it in a more efficient manner.
All right, David, let's get to the question, please.
Yeah, no, that's it. So I just want to hear his comments and awareness of combined heat and power, and if that's something they're looking at. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. And my new goal as Energy Minister will be become as informed as you are on that particular topic. But obviously you're an expert in that. What I would say from my chairs, we are looking at some of those district heating. I know New Glasgow and some other areas are looking at that. So it is something that's on the radar. We have lots of smart folks at the department, and I would hope maybe the opportunity to connect with you in a format where we can have a longer discussion about it. But certainly the department folks. But look, everything is on the table. We're talking about offshore wind. We're talking about offshore oil and gas. We'll talk about onshore. We have to talk about everything, geothermal, solar, district heating. These are all, we have opportunities in all of these things. And I think my role as Premier and certainly as the Energy Minister is to make sure that we are being thoughtful and thorough as we look at these opportunities. And you've raised one there that we would certainly be interested in.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Premier Houston is here for the remainder of the hour. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It is the Fabulous Friday edition. It's extra fabulous today because we have a special guest in the studio. The Premier of Nova Scotia, that is Tim Houston, is here and is answering your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The lines are jammed, so let's get to them and get to as many calls as we can. And welcome Jim to the show. Jim, how are you?
Good morning, Dan, and good morning, Mr. Premier.
Hello, Jim.
I have two questions. First of all, I'm not a member of the PC party, but I have voted for your party in the last two elections, and I appreciate your strategy for health care. My two questions are quick, sir. They're not related to health care. The first question is, what are the plans for a stronger mayor? I hate to use the word power, but stronger mayor power for the municipalities and HRM? And the second question is, how far are we out to get the new Traffic Act legislated and get it out?
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Those are two big ones for sure. And I think, the strong mayor, that was a discussion that was happening for sure. And there's lots of thoughts and comments on that. And I think we've kind of parked that one for now. We'll leave that for now. But certainly I will say I have great sympathy for the mayor. He seems to, the mayor is the only position on council that campaigns for, HRM wide across the whole. Everyone votes for the mayor.
Gets the most votes in the province.
Everyone votes for the mayor too. People vote for their local councillor, and then but everyone votes for the mayor. He puts a platform forward, and man, he's having a real hard time executing on that platform. Look at the way that's shaping up, and we're seeing some of the impacts of that too. So it's something we're watching. But as a provincial government, it's something we said we're not going to get involved in that right now, Jim. But maybe in the next municipal election, somebody can campaign that would be their thing. But certainly we're watching carefully. And traffic is the other issue. Traffic is an area where we can. Certainly, the Act is working its way through. I don't think that's far off. I don't have an actual date for you, so I don't want to throw one out there. But what I would say is that the traffic situation in HRM is pretty debilitating. And Minister Tilley and I have talked about it, and we have some ability through legislation to kind of get more involved in that, but we do want to work with HRM Council on that. But if necessary, we'll get more involved. So we're looking at it. There's a couple of things I've asked the minister. I've said over the next couple of months we have to put some initiatives forward, and we're looking at a bunch of stuff that I think will help in the short term. In the longer term, building takes time, but there are things we can do in the short term, just with synchronization of lights and maybe some of those lanes that hardly ever get used that people see, so we can open those drive by.
You wouldn't be referring to a bike lane, would you, Premier?
Well, bike lanes and even even some of the high occupancy ones.
Right.
I mean, we're sitting in traffic, and this lane's completely empty. Right? I mean, let's have some common sense on this stuff. So I think there's some short-term stuff we can do. Obviously, the CN cut. Can we use that? We're having, we're going to push hard on CN on that. So long way of saying, Jim, I hear you, and there are some things we can do, and we're going to do them.
Very quickly before we go back to the phones, and we're talking municipal matters. We know that the City Council decision on Dartmouth Cove has come back to the province and is under review now. Do you have any news on that?
No. So it's under review by the minister, and there's a certain time. I think it's 30 days. It's not up yet. It might be next week or something. It's coming up though. But what I would just say is I know what council was trying to do, but there are questions about whether the bylaw is ambiguous. Certain ways you can look at it, and so we're getting some legal opinions on that bylaw, and also there's still the big question of jurisdiction. I think even at the council itself, some of the councillors were saying, well, hold on, we can't do here. And I think the staff also kind of said that in the meeting too, because it's federal jurisdiction. Right. Like it's actually federal jurisdiction. So, but anyways, I know what they're trying to do. They put a bylaw, they passed the bylaw. We're looking at the bylaw to see, if it's clear and ambiguous or ambiguous. And then the minister will have something to say about that.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones. Let's welcome George to the program. George, how are you?
Morning, sir. Thank you for taking my phone call.
Certainly. Your question, please.
I'll try and be very brief. Well, the Premier recently changed the hunting regulations, allowing hunters to hunt for another week, allowing them to hunt another 11 Sundays, and allowing a 12-year-old to carry a rifle. Was there any consultation whatsoever with the private landowners on whose land a lot of these hunters go? Because to my knowledge, I belong to 4 different landowner organizations which represent about 40,000 landowners. There was no consultation whatsoever. And if not, I'd like to ask the Premier why there was no consultation.
Thanks, George.
There would have been consultation for sure, George. And private land, you have some. It's private land. You have some ability over that private land, and you can certainly landowners can exercise their rights on that. In the broader question, across rural Nova Scotia, hunting is. I'm not personally a hunter, but it's a way of life for many Nova Scotians, and also major deer issues in many parts of the province too. So I think when you combine all of that with the affordabilities, food security issues. For many people, this is how they're feeding their families. So I actually think that I will say, George may correct me on this, or I may get blasted in my email later today, but I've had incredible feedback from families. I was able to go out with my daughter or my son and teach them, and also from young people as well. I get pictures of families out together, spending family time out in our beautiful outdoors, doing a passion that's been a passion of theirs for generations. So I'm seeing positives. Look, nothing is all positive. There's always a few detract. My dad used to say, you won't be able to please everyone. And I used to say, well, 1 or 2 would be all right, Dad. I'd settle for 1 or 2. But so I know there's 2 sides to this, and I certainly don't want to be dismissive of that. But I will say, George, that what I'm hearing is resoundingly positive about this change. So I hope it continues that way, but we'll watch it.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it. We're going to take a break for the news. The Premier will be here for the next 30 minutes. Lines are full, but keep trying. And patience is a virtue, they say. We'll try to get to as many calls as we can after the break. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes.
Facts.
All right, Welcome back. Premier Houston here for the next 30 minutes, and we're going to, again, try to get to as many calls as we can, so I'll ask you to keep your questions short, and let's get right to it, Premier, so that we can get some more calls in, and we welcome Carolyn to the program. Carolyn, how are you?
Oh, good morning, Dan. Good morning, Premier. How are you?
Doing great, Carolyn. Thanks for calling in.
It's great. Thank you for doing this. Premier, there are several environmental issues in this province that are, due to your government's decisions. So I have lots of questions, but I know I don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to focus on the recent decision by your government to thankfully protect Mabou Beach Provincial Park that was under threat 3 times, and people had to come out 3 times to fight it off. So they're afraid, and a lot of us are afraid, that our provincial parks are open for development, extraction, exploration. So I would like you to, can you please commit to protecting our provincial parks? Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks for calling, Carolyn. I was going to say, did we get to the right place? I think we got to the right place, right? So we go through a process, we listen. So our provincial parks are protected areas. They're protected for a reason, for recreation and enjoyment, and so Nova Scotians can enjoy the beautiful outside. And I think we've done that. We protected Owl's Head. There's no change in West Mabou. We listened to we listened early on about possible another recreational use of that, a golf course, which is also people outside enjoying the beautiful Nova Scotia environment. So I think we get to the right place. I think my government has shown that we'll listen carefully, and also when we get something wrong, we reverse that too. So I think the structure that we have there seems to be working. Carolyn mentioned a few things off the top. She says I created other environmental issues. I don't think that's true. I would have liked to have kind of heard which environmental issues we've created, but certainly, look, we're doing the best we can. We're Nova Scotians. My kids live here. I live here. I care about the earth. I care about the water. I care about the air. I care about making sure that people can have a successful life here and have a job too, right? So I'm always constantly trying to find the balance, and I think we do that. And when we don't, then we just say we didn't, and we fix it.
On to Carolyn's question, Premier. You've opened up uranium for exploration. You've talked about oil and gas. You've opened up another gold mine here in Nova Scotia. Some are concerned that your government is putting the economy over the environment. Is that in fact the case?
No, I think we're trying to rebalance things for sure. I mean, there's very strict environmental laws that go through a process, right? And even when you go through a process, the quarry would be a good example. People still don't want it. That's okay, right? We can have opinions on stuff like that, but we have to deal in facts and the science as well. But there's another reality too, right? Like we have $1 billion budget deficit, and we have the GDP per capita numbers. We're 60 of 60 in North America. Might have moved up to 59th, I think. But any way you look at it, the $1 billion deficit and a very poorly performing economy. And yet we have all these opportunities. For generations we've made, our province has been built off natural resources. And yet over the last 15, 20 years, we just said, no, we're not going to do that. So if you look at the GDP per sector, so the economic activity per sector over the last 20 years, you would see even fishing's down, farming's down, forestry's down, mining was down. The oil and gas went to zero, right? And yet at the same time we say, well, why are our children moving away? Why are people moving away? And then we depopulate. And then when people move away, what happens? The school closes, the church closes, the business closes, right? So we just have to be open-minded about things and have adult discussions. And I say what I try to say as Premier is like, we have to get away from the maybes. Maybe in government speak is, well, let's get another study. Let's get another study and another study. And let's get to the yes or get to the no. It's not always yes. We've shown that too. But it can't always be no. And for too long, it's always been no. And there are certainly people, I hear about them. I see them on the news. We have to stop all development. Well, we can't stop all development, because we have to live and people have to have employment. So we're trying to find the balance. We're doing the best we can. I think we're finding the balance. I think we got to the right place on West Mabou. There was a discussion for sure. We lifted the uranium ban but there's no uranium activity in the province. We just took away the ban, and I think we could have another discussion about why that matters for all kinds of other reasons. We have lots of uranium in this province. We should probably know where it's at, but we just banning things. It's lazy government, right? To take away the bans and have discussions, that's hard, but we have to do the hard things, and we're willing to do them.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255 to the phones, and welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you?
I'm good, and good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Premier, thanks for doing this. I think it's important. I have a question about the changes your government has made to the heating assistance rebate program. The criteria other years has been for a $600 supplement payment, single people $55,000 of income or less, and families of $75,000 of income or less would qualify. The new changes, as I understand it, and I don't qualify myself, but I'm just calling generally, the payments dropped now from $600 to $400. For a single person, you now can't make over $30,000. It has to be under $30,000 to qualify, and families $45,000. There's about 117,000 people that have taken advantage of this program. Can you tell me why you've made those changes? Because it seems to be hurting the lower income people. And if you have any consideration to revisit the decision.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. And we're all like, it's tough right now. Like the affordability challenges, it's tough. Like I see that, I feel that as well. And we always want to do what we can. There's one change to that program that goes back a little bit that is probably an important part of the discussion too. When I became premier, that was $200. And in the heat of the high inflation and the real challenges we were having, we recognized that. We did what we could at the time. We put it up to $600, right? And now we're in situations changed again, and we're $400. So it actually is still double what it was when I became premier. Do I wish it could be 600? Yeah. Do I wish it could be 1,000? Of course. But we're trying to deal with what's in front of us in terms of a $1 billion deficit, right? And so that's why we're so focused on growing the economy, developing things, getting more economic activity, so we have more money to do more. Like I always say that as a government, we do what we can. We even do a little more than we can. That's how you get a deficit of $1 billion, because you're spending more than you're getting in. But even no matter what we do, we wish it was more. So that's a hard decision to roll that back from 600 to 400, Chris. It is for sure. But we're making hard decisions every day, and hopefully, if we can get the Wind West going and we can get some of the offshore oil and gas going again like we used to have, and get some revenues flowing, well, then we can have a discussion about putting that up to a more reasonable amount, and maybe less people will need it because there's more people working. So these are all the things that make my hair gray. It's really difficult to have that at 600 1 year and roll back to 400. Really difficult. But we're trying to deal with the challenges there. But thank you, Chris, for reminding me how the impacts of that decision.
Back to the phones, and we welcome Dan to the show. Dan, how are you?
Oh, good morning, Mr. Premier. How are you?
I'm doing good, Dan.
No good deed goes unpunished. I'll bet you know what that means.
If I didn't before, I do now. There's no question about that.
Oh, my. Look, I'm an HP housing provider. Just a bit of background. Like 6 years ago, many of us housing providers are still living with the pandemic. When the pandemic broke out, I was bringing food and cash to my cash-employed tenants who didn't have any money, and that was for about a month, when the pandemic broke out. And I would actually go get their groceries, and I wipe down their doorknobs, all that kind of stuff. And that's when we weren't even allowed out. So housing providers are not bad people. So here's where I'm coming from. It's about the rent cap. And the housing crisis is over. I've got 2 apartments for rent, 600 views, not one single application, right? And immigration stopped. There's lots of building going on out there. My understanding from this show is there's not very many homeless people. So how, as a housing provider, am I supposed to pay a 100% increase in property taxes and other expenses, insurance, with a 5% increase on a $700 rent from 20 years ago? I sometimes think I'm living in an alternate reality. Can you tell me if you have any plans to allow competition to come to the rent cap? Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. And I think yours is a common story, and I think it's one of the things that I always go back to. When you have good tenants, most people want to keep good tenants. They don't like the risk of a turnover and maybe you get a bad tenant, right? So I do think that most landlords, they like good tenants. They do what they can to keep them. You were doing some stuff in the pandemic, probably because you care. You like good tenants, right? So I understand that part of it, and I thank you for that. I know that things are changing. Like there are units coming online. We're way ahead on we put the province's first housing plan. I think it was 40,000 units over some period of time, and we're there's way more construction happening and units opening up. So the landscape, we're seeing the vacancy rate kind of go in a favorable direction. Kind of interested to hear your story about 2 units. Sound like very reasonably priced. I don't know where they're at or any of that stuff, but it's an interesting story. So there's no question the landscape is changing, and we're watching that. When we changed the cap from 2 to 5, and I think there was a plan to over time get that to kind of remove it when the things settled out, and I do think that a lot of landlords, particularly the small ones, got squeezed, and I do apologize for that. The other side of that, and the thinking of the government, and it was preceded my government, but we've continued it, was that the housing crisis really came on as a result of government policy. So it was government policy that caused the mess to begin with. So tenants are getting squeezed by poor government policy. So how do we kind of unwind that? And I think it's starting to unwind. But I would just say thank you for being a person who cares about other Nova Scotians, and say to you that we are watching this carefully and pushing hard on housing stock, more housing, more supply. More supply is the answer to all this, and that is changing, but we're not quite there yet. But maybe we're getting a little closer than I thought based on your comments. But I appreciate you calling in.
Premier, on the other side of that coin, from the renter's perspective, and I'll put my hand up for this one. If and perhaps when that cap comes off, the equivalent apartment that I'm in now, across the street, literally across the street from me, is $1,000 a month more than I'm currently paying. What do you say to people like me when if you take the cap off, then we see that increase?
It's probably $1,000 more because of some of the ramifications of the cap, right? So what has happened is you have let's say you have 10 units, and you can't increase the rent, but everything else is going up, as Dan points out. Power's going up, and everything's going up, right? And then somebody moves, so you're treading water, or whatever, and then somebody moves. Now, one of those 10 units, somebody moves in. Well, guess what they try to do? Make everything up off that one unit. So it drives that one unit up, right? So I think these are some of the unintended consequences of the cap. Right. The cap protects people, but not everyone, right? So I think that I think Dan used the expression of return to more market-based or free market or something, and I think we've not had that free market, and there's been ramifications. So we're trying to unwind all that without a shock to you for no reason, not staying in the same place, being a good tenant, and then getting shocked with a rent so we're trying to manage that, but get to a better place. And it's not easy.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Premier's back. See you in a minute. Welcome back. Welcome back to the program. Having a conversation with the Premier here during the break, but enough of me, right? Let's get to as many calls as we can. We're running out of time, and the lines are jammed. So where are we? Let us go to let's go to Bud. Bud, how are you?
Very good, and yourself? I just wanted to ask the Premier a question. Many years ago, gold mining was a very important part of our Nova Scotia community. I wonder, you as energy manager, why do you not promote that now? Because the price of an ounce of gold is in the $4,000 range, American. I would think that it would be probably lucrative if somebody came in and started to mine and to find a vein of gold. It was always available years ago.
Thanks, Bud.
Well, Bud, good news. So we are focused on natural resources in general. We talk a lot about some and not so much about others. But gold is, we have a strong. You're right, a big tradition of gold mining in this province. It's not all pretty. Certainly, we got some remediation expenditures to go from some of them, but you learn as you live, and so we have tighter restrictions and stuff now. But I will say, Bud, we just we recently approved a gold mine in the Guysborough area. That's the first one that's been approved in, I don't know, quite a while, 10 years, 15 years, or something like that. So that's and it's on an old site as well. And I'm hearing from other old sites that say, look, you're right, with the price at it is and the technology the way it is, we can go back to a prior mine and go through the stockpiles and actually help with remediation, but harvest some gold as they go. So I would say that there is a lot more discussion about gold mining right now in Nova Scotia, Bud, than there was 2 years ago, and maybe even a year ago, and certainly 10 years ago. So it is an active discussion because of a number of factors. But we have the stuff. We can do it where we can do it safely. We should do it.
Thanks, Bud. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Ann to the program. Ann, how are you?
Good. Good morning, Premier and Dan. I have a question, and it's concerning the pain clinic for Dr. Justina Kroloff at the Amherst Hospital. I would like to know why the only interventional pain clinic east of Montreal is not being supported by the hospital, the administration, or the provincial government. We have a world-renowned doctor who runs it. I've been a patient of the clinic for 10 plus years. She's had it running for 17 years. And suddenly there's no space for her or our treatment. They had offered us a closet, which isn't safe because, yes, you can have a reaction to the lidocaine, and you have to be on the machines and properly monitored so nothing goes wrong, and nothing ever has. This has been a clinic that's ongoing for 17 plus years. She put me on my feet after my car accident. I couldn't work for 7 years, and now I'm working. And I'm scared because my chronic pain is coming back full force, and I need to work or I'm going to be one of those homeless people.
We don't want that. So thank you, Anne, and we thank you for sharing your story. We never want to go backwards. We always want to try to go forward. So this is one that has caused a lot of stress for a lot of people, for sure. I think initially I had heard that most of the patients, or there was definitely an effort to kind of reassign patients to make sure they continue to get the care through this transition while the space can be sorted out. I'm hearing from you, maybe that's not the case. Maybe not everyone was able to get attached to somebody, but I would just say that I don't have the answer for you today, but I think it was a logistical space issue that they're working to resolve. But in the meantime, we don't want you to go backwards and be living with pain that you shouldn't have to be living with. So we try to find solutions and attachment for those people. But I will, given your call, Ann, I will certainly get an update on where that's at.
Thanks, Ann. Best of luck. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're almost out of time. Let's see if we can squeeze one more in here, and we welcome Mike to the program. Mike, how are you?
Not too bad. How are you today?
Good. Your question for the Premier, please. We're almost out of time.
Okay, I have a cottage down Wine Harbor, and on October 21st, you put an order of council in 288 to grant a lease to the whale sanctuary and take away the ocean rights for landowners there. And you never even notified them. They found out in the media. And I was just wondering, did anybody investigate this whale sanctuary people to find out their viability of this project? And your answer for taking away their land rights for forever, for their grandchildren, or for years, 100 years.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. The whale sanctuary is certainly an active discussion, and there was lots of community discussions on that and community engagement, and certainly I think that the permit was issued, and it would now be up to the next. If it moves forward, that's up to the company with the financing and all that type of stuff. But it was kind of an interesting thing where the previous rules required unanimous consent of the community, like everyone would have to agree to it. I don't know if you ever tried to get unanimous. I don't think there's three of us in this room. We could get unanimous consent on certain issues, right? So that's pretty tough. You gotta be more realistic on it. But I know there is. I know that's not been an easy one for everyone. Some people are delighted, but I hear from Mike here in your voice. You're certainly not. But we're just we're looking at that. It's an active file. What happens next will be kind of out of our hands.
Well, the people that like Mike suggesting, will they lose their property rights if that thing's built?
No, I think like it's the coast. It's a discussion about coastline and beach access, right? And I don't think it's exactly as characterized there.
Well, I think the three people in this room and probably an extension of that can agree that it's always a lot of fun when Premier Houston is here. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We always run out of time on this, which is good. That means that Nova Scotians are actively involved in their community and like to ask questions of their leaders, and we're very thankful to the Premier for spending some time with us today and sitting in the proverbial hot seat, we'll call it. And hopefully we've raised some questions with the Premier that he can dig into deeper, and hopefully we haven't scared him away so that early in 2026 he can come back and join us again, and maybe we'll switch seats. What do you think? You can host it and I'll answer the questions.
I would enjoy it. I enjoy this though. This helps me. Issues are raised. That tells me what people are thinking and gives me something to think about as well. I always leave here with a bit of pause for thought on issues, and that's a good thing. So I appreciate people calling in and being quite open about some tough issues for them.
Right.
And they're tough questions for me, but they're tough questions for me because they're tough issues for them. So I appreciate you allowing me to do this, and I'd be happy to switch chairs with you next time, though.
Well, Mr. Premier, if we don't see you before the end of the year, I know it's early, but we wish you and your family the very best of the holiday season and a Merry Christmas. And we'll do this very early in the new year, we'll say.
I look forward to it.
The Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston, was your guest. We're going to stop, take a break. Of course, we're going to get an update on the news. On the other side of it, we're going to open up those telephone lines. Like something you heard? Didn't like something you heard? Time for the Friday free-for-all. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. It is the fabulous Friday edition of the program. That was a lot of fun, a lot of callers, and to those of you that were unable to get on or get your questions answered or asked, I apologize. It's a busy hour, and we tried to move through as quickly as we could. I know some of you wanted to ask more questions of the Premier that got on, but in an effort to facilitate that, I thought it prudent that we try to get to as many people as we could. The Premier has committed, at least verbally, to coming back in the new year. So hopefully we can do this again, and we can make this more of a regular thing, because judging by the number of calls that we took over the last hour, it was certainly quite popular. We are going to, in case you're curious, are going to welcome the leaders of the other parties in the province onto the show as we get closer to the holiday season, to have a sit down with the NDP leader, Claudia Chender, and with the Liberals. I think it's probably going to be Ian Rankin that we talk to, but that's still to be determined, so that we can get their perspectives on some of the issues that were raised and anything that happens between now and then. A week in politics is like a year, is it not? Anyway, this is the Friday Free-for-All. This is your opportunity to talk about whatever it is on your mind. We like to give you the opportunity to do this. at the end of the week, so that anything that we talked about during the week and you didn't get a chance to comment on or thought about it after, or perhaps were listening to us on the replay, you can bring that to our attention, or maybe something that we didn't talk about this week that you think needs to be brought to the forefront, to our attention. There's an opportunity for you to do that as well. It's good to get this stuff off your chest before you head into a weekend, because we know that the weekends are busy places for most of us around there. Like something the Premier said, didn't like something the Premier said, that's an opportunity as well for you to join the conversation. The telephone lines, folks, are wide open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the line. That's the way that you can get in. Got an email from Rob on the show. He said, the Premier is a talented politician. I don't believe he directly answered most of the questions this morning, but he is skilled at sounding empathetic and giving a non-answer that sounds like an actual answer. That is, if you aren't listening carefully, the question on whether he should rule out selling provincial parks is one example. It's a skill. Can I say that? It's a skill to be able to do what he does, and I will give Premier Houston credit that. And I think I've said this before after his visits. I've done this with a number of politicians in the past, leaders at different levels, be it a mayor, be it the Premier. I've had other premiers in that seat answering questions, and they come in with a binder, right? A big book of all of the contentious issues. They're rehearsed. They spend the day ahead of time preparing for the eventuality of what is the call-in, but the Premier comes in with a pen. That's it. In fact, I gave him the pen today. And he has a sheet of paper in front of him, and that's it. So doing what I do every day and trying to stay on top of what's going on in the community, and y'all know I get it wrong sometimes. But to be able to balance all of the stuff that's going on is not an easy task to do. And I will give the Premier full credit for A, doing this. A lot of politicians won't do this. And B, being able to do it the way that he does. Now, if he answers the question, yeah, you're right. He likes to perhaps give an answer of a non-answer. But at least he does it, right? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just a very quick note before we carry on here. We're going to cut the open hour short a little bit today. Just before 1 o'clock, we're going to welcome our weather specialist in. That's Allister Aalders, who's going to join us to give us a look at the weekend forecast. I think that's important so that he can give us the very latest. He's, in fact, in the building and is going to go over the latest maps and data and bring you the very latest on the forecast. And we're going to call this one the Christmas decoration forecast. Is it going to be a good time to get those decorations up? I know today's looking pretty good, at least the first bit of it. Is there some rain coming? What is Sunday going to look like? All of this stuff and more when our weather specialist, Allister Aalders, joins us on the program. Lines are wide open, folks. I know this isn't the traditional time for the Friday free-for-all, but here's an opportunity to bring stuff to our attention, a golden opportunity to join the show and have a chat. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. The Friday free-for-all continues after this break. Welcome back. This is the Friday Free-for-All. The lines are open. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Enough of me. Let's get to the phones and welcome David to the show. David, how are you?
Yeah, good, Dan. Thanks. I was just wanted to comment on the F-35. I heard Ken Hansen, I believe, who you have on your show quite often as well, or Todd show anyway. Yep. He was on CBC talking about the F-35, and he was highly critical of it. And he basically said that the only thing the F-35 does better than the Griffin is in stealth. But he also added that sort of in terms of like a near-peer adversary, I think they call it, the usefulness of stealth technology is maybe about 10 years. after that, countermeasures, better technology will have basically rendered that neutral, in which case we'll be left with a sort of far inferior plane that won't be able to sort of look after itself in the skies against, others. So it won't, can't fly as fast as the Griffin, climb as steeply, and it doesn't have near the range of the Griffin. So from what I understood from the interview, to patrol the Arctic, it would need refueling along the way, which is not only just a huge logistical challenge, but it just introduces a huge vulnerability where you got to have tanker fleets and all that kind of stuff. But the other thing, which they didn't talk about, is that it's a single-engine airplane. So if your engine planes out somewhere over the Arctic and you're basically going down, and if it's remote enough that you need aerial refueling to even get there, good luck getting rescued. So, my concern is just that, we'll buy a plane that'll maybe be good for 10 years, and then after that leave us completely vulnerable. I mean, how long have we flown the F-18s for? 40 years almost.
I was going to say 35 years at least, yeah.
How stealthy is that plane going to be 35 years from now kind of thing? Enough. So, I mean, but, on the other hand, in the near term, they are stealth, and that technology is effective, and we have some on the way, and we have threats coming from Russia and stuff like that. So I think there is probably an advantage to having some in our fleet, to serve that sort of specialized kind of role that we may need to call upon, heaven forbid. So, I would see, purchasing 19 to 30 or something like that. But, definitely the Griffin seemed like a really capable aircraft and good for our situation. But I guess the other thing as well, too, because we basically bought into the F-35 program, we supported, invested in it, we're guaranteed to get those sort of industrial benefits and, supply parts to it and all that kind of thing, which doesn't go away if we decide to purchase the Griffin instead, or just curtail our purchase of the F-35. So, I mean, there's no reason to think that those companies that currently supply parts of the F-35 will start. And as far as I know, it's part of the contracts we signed. So we kind of have a right to participate in that. So, I don't know. That's just my thoughts. And I'm just sort of repeating what I've heard elsewhere and stuff. But,
all right, have a good one.
Definitely some concern. Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-822-55. I will fully admit right now that I am not completely up to speed on the differences of the two aircraft. I know that the F-35 is a project that has been worked on. It's based in the United States. I know the Canadian parts are going into it. I think that's what David was referring to those contracts. The Griffin, on the other hand, not really familiar with it. I know that that it's made by Saab, and I know that they are suggesting that they could move some of the production of the Griffin to Canada should that happen. And I heard this morning on the way into work that it's not just the Griffin. There's an observation platform. I'm assuming it's one of those radar planes that they would also consider being built here in Canada. Some of the reporting that I've seen on it suggests that if we go the Griffin route, then those contracts that David was talking about could be in jeopardy with the F-35. We know the President of the United States can change things on a whim. Maybe. But the rest of it, I will venture to reach out to somebody that's far more knowledgeable into this subject on the difference of the two and where we should be looking for a future show, because I'm interested in it, and it's certainly going to be a massive dollar figure for us once we make that decision. And I wonder if the ongoing trade war and some of the sentiment between our two countries is responsible for us to look away from the F-35. That might be where we're at. But anyway, I fully admit, I'm not completely up to speed on it. I do know that military procurement in this country can be a puzzle at times. Let's welcome Chris back to the show. Chris, how are you?
Hi, good, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. I didn't call about this, but you are mentioning the F-35s. Maybe if Carney was smart, he would use the F-35 as part of the bargaining chips that he needs to negotiate with Trump.
Perhaps. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's the long game of this. I really don't know.
Well, who knows? But those Griffins, aren't they shipped down to Brazil by freighter and then assembled in Brazil down there right now? So that's seems kind of a convoluted way of putting production in place.
I'm not sure if all of them go down there to be, but I know that they do have a plant down in Brazil, and I think somebody told me there's 1,000 people that work there. They're talking about 10,000 people here in Canada.
Yeah. Oh, it's never going to be 10,000, I don't think. But yeah, I do think that they ship parts and stuff down and then assemble it there, more or less. Which maybe that's what you have to. But anyway, reason I called, you're aware of my question to the Premier a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I get his answer where they had to cut the payment to the people that need the HARP program from $600 to $400, going to save some money and so on. But what he did not address, which is adding insult to injury or putting salt in the wounds for those people, is that the criteria or the eligibility, instead of being $55,000 income for a single person, it's now dropped down to $30,000 income. That's technically, if you work 52 weeks of the year, that's technically below minimum wage even. And on families, dropping it from 75 down to 45. So there's going to be a hell of a lot of people out of approximately 117,000 people that took advantage of that program last year. There's going to be a lot of those people that no longer will qualify. And that's the point I was trying to make with him, or I was hoping he'd address, is the fact that not so much just taking the $200 off, that's one thing, but to drop the eligibility to a point that, well, I don't know what percentage, but there's going to be probably way less than half of the people that qualified other years will be able to qualify this year. And that, in my opinion, is targeting people that are in need of this program at a time that they need it most, i.e. it's a heating assistance thing. What are we doing? We're coming up to the heating system here. This is an ideal time to put money in people's pockets that need it for those sort of things. So that was kind of the point that I was hoping he would touch on, which he didn't. And in full disclosure, I voted for Houston, and I think most of the things he's done I'm in agreement with, but not that particular one. I was talking to a lady just the other day, and she's concerned about it. She just found out, and because she made almost $33,000 last year. Other years she's qualified. This year she said, I'm not going to be able to qualify, but my need is still there. The need is alive and well, if you want to call it that, but her ability to access the program now is gone completely because of the changes they made. And just coincidentally, Dan, the money that's going to be saved by cutting back on that program is a little more than what the total income or revenue from the bridges and tolls brought in last year. So I guess maybe one is offsetting the other. I don't know. But anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up, and I was hoping for a little better answer on the Premier's part.
Have a fantastic weekend, Chris.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go back to the phones. Welcome Trina to the show. Trina, how are you?
Hi, Dan. How are you? Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I just have a question maybe someone could look into or somebody could answer.
Sure.
Me as a regular person, I'm not a politician. I don't work for the government, nothing like that. By emailing one of the ministers, how long should we wait for a reply back? I have emailed one about 3 months ago and got an automatic reply, but haven't heard anything yet. So I'm just wondering if anybody knows an answer or how I get an answer from that minister.
Speaking from experience on this file, Trina, we email ministers all the time. And it may be, and again, obviously from a different perspective, right? When we're doing this from the media end of things, it gets moved along very quickly. But our experience is if it's longer than a week or 10 days, at least in my world, then that's too long.
Yeah, because, my concern is not one of the hot topics we were talking about. However, it is a discussion that needs to be had or needs to be worked on. So that was my concern. So should I email back?
Sure. Email them as many times as you want, because that sometimes will get the gears moving.
All right, perfect. Thank you for your advice, Dan, and you have a great weekend. And thank you to Vanessa as well.
You too. I appreciate it, Trina. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The wheels of government tend to move slowly, but to be waiting that long for a response from a minister, I don't think it would be inappropriate for somebody to reach out again, because obviously they're not going to respond if they haven't responded already. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Nelson to the show. Nelson, how are you?
Good, Dan. Good afternoon to you.
What's on your mind?
I wanted to get through the Premier, understandably very busy, and that's good. But my question is, now I've been around the construction industry the last couple of years, kind of come out of retirement, but I see that there's a major problem with the small contractors here in this province. The problem is that they're not getting paid in a timely manner for work performed. And unfortunately, this is forcing some of them into bankruptcy and others to shut down because they just don't have the cash flow. My question for the Premier would have been, I heard there was a legislation on the books some years ago, but when is he going to make it law that once you submit your requisitions to these large companies, these general contractors, that they're going to get paid in a reasonable amount of time, like in 30 days? I know contractors now who've been waiting 4 and 5 months for the money for, doing jobs for people, and they have government contracts.
So
these
are
general contractors do, but
So it's
they're not paying their subcontractors.
Sorry, Nelson, it's the generals that aren't paying the subs. Is that the problem?
Yes. The general contractors aren't paying the subcontractors, and they have a reasonable amount of cash flow, but they certainly can't go 3 and 4 and 5 months without being paid when you've got like bills out of $100,000.
Right.
And the reason I bring this up is this has recently happened with Emera, Nova Scotia Power.
Yes.
They've got a lot of people now who are basically hanging on, waiting to get paid. And there's really no reason for it. They have the money. They're just slack about paying. But if there was a law in place that said you must, within 30 days, pay any work that has been already completed, well, at least then they'd know that they're going to get the money to continue working.
Or 30, 60, whatever, but at least have a benchmark on the book so we know that, it can't go any longer than that.
Absolutely. And then implement a 20% fee or something on monies not paid, because one of the main problems I'm finding here, and I found it with a number of young people now, I mean young, 20s and 30s, what's happening is that this is happening to their company. They can't get paid, so they're going a couple of weeks without pay or 3 weeks, and everybody's up against it now. Right. So they're simply leaving here and going out west where they can go to work immediately and make better money. And they're saying, we're not coming back. So we're losing a lot of our skilled labor to out west because people here just aren't getting paid.
It's terrible. Nelson, appreciate you bringing that to us.
Thank you, Dan. Have a great day.
You too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The Nova Scotia Power / Emera file has been reported on as of late that contractors were waiting months and months to get paid. Not sure if that had something to do with the now infamous cyber attack or not. But unacceptable for a company that makes as much money as Emera does as a parent company and Nova Scotia Power makes as a utility that contractors that have agreements and contracts in place aren't getting paid. There has to be a better way to get that done. Or can you imagine we go through all of this work to keep people here and attract people here and talented people, skilled labor here, and then they don't get paid, so they just throw their hands up in the air and go out to Alberta where they can just work in their field and get paid every 2 weeks? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Friday Free for All continues after the news. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back in minutes. Welcome back. Friday Free for All continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lots of lines open if you want to get in and get something off your chest before you head off into your weekend. Here's a golden opportunity. Again, those numbers are 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Mike to the show. Mike, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. How are you today?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, you know what? That caller a few minutes ago there, he was talking about the rebate there for the power. And isn't it kind of ironic, like the conversation you just had, that some of the people are having trouble getting paid by Emera and stuff like that?
Right.
Now, what would happen if you didn't pay your power bill?
Right. And that's just not Emera. That's everybody, right? They're very quick to charge us late fees and interest and everything else when we're late, but when they're late, different story.
Oh yeah, same as the government. If you owe the government money, you better get it in.
Right.
If they owe you, it'll be in the mail sometime.
Fair enough.
No, it's ridiculous. But anyway, I got an answer back. Now, I've been getting that for 2 years. You know my situation,
okay.
like financially.
Yes.
And all of a sudden this year, we're not only what Buddy was talking about, where they dropped it down.
The heating rebate, yes. Yep.
Yeah, and they turned around and they want me to now verify my wages. They want me to give them last year's income tax form to show how much I earned. They already know how much I earned, but anyway,
right.
I figure that's just another gimmick to people that don't bother. There's some more money that they don't pay out, right?
You know, I agree with you there, Mike. I think that some of the red tape that we have to go through in some of these programs, it's not just government, it's business too, where there's all these hoops you have to jump through. I think that the calculation there is that a percentage of people won't, and then they just don't have to pay it out.
Yep, absolutely, and that's what they're hoping for. And I've been kind of thinking about just saying, for the sake of $400, the heck with it.
Right.
I like one of your last callers there was saying that she could really use it, and I could too. It helps, but anyway, for the sake of kissing their butt so I can get $400, I'm not too excited about that. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But that's all I really want to say today.
All right, Mike.
Just pretty funny how they don't pay their bills. Eh?
Fair enough. Have a good weekend,
right.
Mike. Take care.
You too, bud. Bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I just wanted to be very clear. We were talking about Nova Scotia Power, and I said that they'll charge you penalties and late fees, and normally they would. But if you recall back to our conversation with Nova Scotia Power a couple of days ago when we had their customer care people on the program, they say that because of the ongoing situation with those estimates, right? Those guesses that people are starting to get their bills, and holy smokes, right? They're out of whack. Nova Scotia Power has said that they will not charge you a late fee, will not charge you any interest, and will not disconnect anybody until all of this stuff is done. So there's that. But yes, you'd think on the other side of it, and I think I said it before the break, that, Emera's a multi-billion-dollar company, right? That's the parent company of Nova Scotia Power. And Nova Scotia Power brings in a lot of money. And I understand that the need for vigilance, maybe is the word, when they're dealing with this cyber attack. But to not pay your subcontractors, that's pretty petty, for lack of a better term, if that's the case. That was an eye-opening call that we took earlier. I think it was Nelson that called us and said that younger subcontractors that are doing good work for the utility and are going without pay are just walking away. And they're going out west. And we've spent all of this time and all of this money and all of this energy to try and grow our skilled labor trades here. And we are not going to keep people if we don't pay them, right? It's bizarre. Makes you wonder if and I don't know how this works, and maybe somebody out there that's far more knowledgeable on this subject. I don't send invoices. I don't have my own company, so I recall getting invoiced before where companies would suggest that it's net 60 or net 30 or whatever else, right? That would be to get paid. If it's, and maybe this needs to be legislation, I'm just kind of spitballing this, but if that's the case and a company's not paying you, I know the small business world, right? That involves small claims court. It happens all the time. But shouldn't there not be a mechanism that you can charge interest on things? Or maybe there is. Again, I don't know. But if you're, as Nelson said, if you're 4 and 5 months out from not paying a contractor, should that not be something you can chase? At least get a little bit of extra for not getting that bill paid on time? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. We're going to, of course, welcome Allister Aalders in here very shortly. He's just putting the final touches on his forecasts for the afternoon. The new data is in. We're going to get you the very latest on what you can expect here on the program. On the weekend forecast. Is it going to be? We're going to entitle this forecast that Allister's going to do for us, that he does here every Friday, the holiday decoration forecast. It has been darn windy in Nova Scotia lately, right? It's been windy for weeks, it seems. Yesterday, a complete change. It was lovely. I left work here, I don't know, Vanessa, what time did I leave? 1 o'clock, 1:30, somewhere around there. And it was 6 or 7 degrees. There was very little wind. It was actually nice to be outside. And this morning, maybe not so much. There was lots of frost on the pumpkin. I live very close to Belcher's Marsh. I always say Marsh in Clayton Park. Driving by it this morning, all of the grass around the marsh, the bulrushes and all the other grass that grows there were all white. And it was kind of a neat looking, would have been a neat photograph. They the white and the trees and everything else. And I will say this morning, for all of you out there that are getting the orange gear on to go out and try and fill that tag, I saw one of the biggest buck deer I've seen in Nova Scotia this morning. Fortunately, it was standing on the path at Belcher's Marsh. Well, fortunate, I guess, if you wanted to see it, but if you're out looking for something like that, it was mammoth. I've not seen a deer that large in a long, long time in this province. We're going to stop and take a break. On the other side of it, we're going to welcome our weather specialist, soon-to-be meteorologist, that being Allister Aalders. The weekend forecast is coming right up. Welcome back. I think we talked about this last week, Allister, when we get ready to do this segment every week, and that liner runs makes me hungry, right? It's the perfect time because it's lunchtime for us, right? And they're talking about pizzas and donairs, and it's like, oh, that'd be good.
And it's, kind of a Friday, like, if you have like a Friday, like kind of treat day or treat night, like it's the perfect setup for it, Go see our wonderful partner out in Middle Sackville at Haddad's Pizza. Some great deals on right now, and a big thank you, of course, for sponsoring this segment.
And you have to drive kind of back that way, right?
I do.
Yeah,
so
there you go. I think I know what you're doing after the show's over. That voice, of course, Allister Aalders, our weather specialist, who joins us every Friday to bring us the weekend forecast. And Allister, I heard your forecast a couple days ago talking about all the wind that we've had as of late. Being that I have been out into the woods of Nova Scotia on the odd weekend, it has been not like crazy windy, but breezy.
Consistently windy,
right?
Is a good, or consistently breezy and at times gusty.
Not the gales of November.
No, certainly not. But obviously we've had more systems rolling through at this time of year. They're stronger systems because we're starting to see more clashes with air masses. So they're starting to develop deeper centers of low pressure, and, so they move through with wind. And then we've been in, several times this month in a bit of a blocking pattern. So the lows are still hanging over parts of the North Atlantic, and you get kind of that wrap around wind.
Say that 5 times fast.
And behind it. So, it certainly has been gusty and I would say generally breezy. And the thing is too, is, the nights and mornings at times have been windy. We haven't had necessarily that relief where, the winds come up a bit in the afternoon, but then they settle down at night where, especially the first half of this week, it was consistently breezy, kind of start to finish until finally, the last couple of days where things have been pretty calm, which has been nice. And it's great to see the sunshine too, because as much as we needed the rain and we still need more, at this time of year, we really need that sunshine too, just with the shorter days.
It's so dark, right? And we're getting sunsets at like 4:45 and it's dark by 5:30, right?
Exactly.
So it's that time of year where we need the light, and I get it. It looks like today, this morning anyway, first of all, how about that frost this morning?
The last 2 mornings have been, where I am, outside of the city, it's been really chilly. I know in the city itself, it's been a bit better, especially if you're right at the water's edge. You know, that ocean has a warming effect at this time of year, but I think a lot of people may be caught off guard, maybe don't have the ice scraper in the vehicle, so probably doing the old, maybe I guess a card out of your wallet or the windshield washer fluid on the windshield.
Well, that's what I did this morning. I gave up because it was, that you get that frost and even the scraper doesn't take it off. So I just said enough of that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just kind of have to accept defeat and just wait a little bit and
let the heaters work.
But the mornings have been cooler than average. We kind of did a bit of a flip where the daytime highs during the first half of the week were a bit cooler than average, but our nighttime lows were warmer than average, which is about 0 for this time of year. So the nights are getting cooler, but we've been down to -2, -3 in parts of the city, and then you move inland, it's -4, -5, -6. So it is that time of year. Chilly mornings, but on days like today, warmer afternoons, which is certainly nice.
Yesterday was lovely.
It was a really the wind, obviously a big factor where it wasn't a factor yesterday. It makes a huge difference at this time of year. Really nice. And it's really nice out there today too. And, the overall pattern isn't looking too bad over the next few days. Some disturbances that we will talk about, but, it's been nice because we've been just in a very active pattern where we haven't had really 2 back-to-back days of sunshine for what seems like a while. So it's certainly been welcome.
I'm calling this forecast, Allister, the holiday decoration forecast. I know many people are digging them out and getting ready to set them up this weekend.
Big weekend for that.
It looks like maybe today, at least the first half of today, and Sunday, your best bet for that Saturday, going to be a bit wet, isn't it?
So Saturday's a little interesting because we have 2 systems at play. A cold front crosses on Saturday. The front itself, though, is not really active. It's not really coming in with a strong line of weather, so there's a chance of an isolated shower along it. So if you have plans Saturday morning, first part of the afternoon, you might encounter a shower, but overall it's a fairly low chance and not looking too bad. And temperatures will be warming up, mid-upper single digits. So it's going to be mild. The problem, if you will, or the system that could put a damper on your plans is a developing area of low that will feed into the front. It's just going to brush by the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia Saturday night. And it looks like it will. The models have been back and forth all week, trying to forecast. It's been a bit of a challenge this week, but it looks like it will come close enough that later in the afternoon, Saturday and Saturday evening, that brushes some showers into the Halifax area, especially closer to the coast, but certainly expect some wet weather as we go later Saturday and Saturday night, but it's a fast-moving system, so we're back to sunshine on Sunday. Not windy, a bit breezy in the afternoon, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, but that's nothing too substantial. So if you are looking for some opportunities to hang up the Christmas lights, if you have this afternoon, perfect weather. There's just a slight chance of a shower coming in tonight. First half of tomorrow looking okay. You might encounter an isolated shower, but watching the opportunities for more widespread showers late day, Saturday night, and then Sunday we're back to fair weather. So Sunday is probably your day to put up the lights.
Beginning of next week, back to work Monday. What are we looking at on long range for next week?
So weak disturbance on Monday could bring a few showers, maybe mixing with wet flurries. It's nothing too significant. And then Tuesday looking quiet. There is another system set to move in for the middle of the week. Looks like that would bring showers or rain. The timing of that system still a bit up in the air, where some guidance brings that system in more so Tuesday night, early Wednesday. Some of it have it coming in on Wednesday itself, and others have it really holding off until later. So kind of eyeing the Wednesday time frame for a system to possibly move through, but again, that would be showery weather. No snow, at least in the forecast, at least accumulating widespread snow at this point.
And it's interesting you raise the snow issue because earlier this week I got some pictures and some emails from people living in northern New Brunswick up the Edmundston way. They got 15 centimeters.
They had a decent snowfall.
They had a snow day there at Kansas School.
it is that time of year where winter is always lurking. So, that system brought mostly rain and showers to Nova Scotia, but it brought the first kind of impactful snowfall to northwestern New Brunswick Sunday and into Monday. And even parts of the valley and the Copwood Mountains earlier in the week had some accumulating snow because of the winds blowing in off the Bay of Fundy, the Northumberland Strait, kind of producing that sea effect snow that is very localized but can accumulate quite a bit. So we had that effect earlier in the week, but so far, at least in the Halifax area, I know we've had a few flakes in the air at times, but so far so good.
All right, we're going to put you on the spot now, Allister.
Uh-oh.
And when do you suspect we'll get that impactful snow? Is it the long-range forecast? Are we looking at snow at least, let's call it school cancelable? Can you say that?
Impactful?
Yes. Snow. Are we going to see that before Christmas?
Traffic comes to a halt in the afternoon,
Basically, when should we get our snow tires on?
Now's the time. I got mine on this week, so I think now is certainly the time. The pattern does look to shift as we go towards the end of the month and into early December, where it's looking very favorable that we will start to see some shots of Arctic air coming down from obviously the Arctic into central Canada and possibly even parts of the central and southern eastern U.S. Now, just exactly where those colder pools of air settle will be determine just where that storm track is, because basically imagine the cold air pool, then you have the warmer air, and that storm track's kind of right up the middle. So if that storm track if that cooler air is able to make it a bit farther south and east, maybe we start to see more opportunities for snow. But if it doesn't quite make it there and that storm track is, say, through New Brunswick, then we'll continue to likely see rain events because we're in the warm sector of those lows. So I would certainly say starting to keep a closer eye on late November and the first half of December for more opportunities for at least colder air. And that would certainly increase the storm track and opportunities that we could see snow. But really at this time, and throughout the entire winter, but it's really going to be dependent on where those systems track and if there's cold air the systems are able to tap into.
Too early to get an early prediction on a white Christmas?
Yeah, too early. I mean, we were spoiled last year with a white Christmas, which was the first in a while for most of the region. So it's still very much too soon, because obviously we can get a decent snowfall and then it all melts away, right? So certainly it looks like December opportunities for cooler than normal temperatures, but just exactly if that results in more snow. I mean, obviously I think we're going to see our first snowfall eventually coming in, because we typically do in late November and early December. But just how much and how frequent these snow events could be really will depend on how this pattern evolves.
So the takeaways today and Sunday look like Christmas decoration time. Saturday, maybe early in the day.
Yep.
And then a little bit of rain Saturday. Starting next week, not too bad.
Yeah, a bit unsettled Monday, but otherwise it's looking fine Tuesday. And temperatures fluctuating. Mild today and tomorrow. Cooler behind the cold front Sunday and Monday, but warming back up with that next system midweek.
Thanks, Allister.
No
Allister
problem.
here every Friday to give us the latest on the weekend forecast. That's going to do it, folks. Our thanks to Premier Houston for spending an hour with us today. It's always fun when he's here. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Get out there and enjoy what Nova Scotia has to offer. We're so lucky to live in this province. Be well, and remember, be kind to one another.